Hello again and welcome to Sunday Thoughts from Ardtrea Desertcreat. A couple of announcements as always, and I'll keep them brief. You're probably watching this very late Saturday night or Sunday morning, and that means that our walk to Tullyhog Fort for Marie Curie funds is done and dusted. If you were there, thanks for your support. If you'd still like to give to Marie Curie, just pop something in an envelope, write Marie Curie on it, and we'll make sure that it goes into the pot. The fund that we're sending off to support Marie Curie workers. Next week, Sunday the 3rd of October, God willing, is our harvest service in Ardtrea Desertcreat. For me, harvest in a country church like ours has always been the absolute highlight of the year. So it makes me really sad to have to make it low-key. But I feel it's the right thing to do with the current state of our pandemic, where things are going sadly pear-shaped again. So we're just having the one short morning harvest service on the same Sunday in both churches, Ardtrea 10:30 and Desertcreat 12 o'clock. Nothing in the evening, and we'll put something lovely online and link to our diocesan service as well, for those of you who like the more traditional morning service Sunday thing. Here's a reading from Ecclesiastes chapter 2. I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good. That also proved meaningless. Laughter, I said. It's madness. And what does pleasure accomplish? I tried cheering myself with wine and embracing folly, my mind still guiding me with wisdom. I wanted to see what was good for people to do under the heavens during the few days of their lives. I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and I planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks, planted all kinds of fruit and trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves of flourishing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had other slaves who were born in my house. I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers, and a harem as well, the delights of a man's heart. I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all this my wisdom stayed with me. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labour, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet, when I surveyed all that my hands had done, and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. I'm not quite sure who wrote Ecclesiastes. I don't think anyone is, but we know a little about him. He was rich, he was wise, he was based in Jerusalem. Our guess is it was King Solomon. But in the book, he's simply referred to as the teacher or the quester. And like all of us, he is looking for what you might call a life worth living. So he's pursuing wisdom. But in this morning's reading, and it runs right through the book, he's looking for meaning. And he's trying all kinds of pleasures. There isn't one among you who has never asked the question, what is life all about? There isn't one among you who haven't occasionally thought, when I die, there are 3 billion others on this globe spinning through space. My life barely matters. And we all think like that at times, and yet that's not true. And it's that happy thought that everything is meaningless that opens up the book of Ecclesiastes. And that idea will crop up about 25 times in the book. It's all meaningless. Maybe whoever wrote this book was slightly depressed when he wrote. It's possible. Bible writers were only human. And when you think about it, it's quite a strange book in a way to be part of the Bible. These mostly pessimistic, certainly melancholic, maybe just realistic thoughts, penned about 3,000 years ago, dwelling mostly on how meaningless everything can seem at times. It's maybe even more bizarre that the book of Ecclesiastes sits in our Bible right next to the book of Proverbs, which seems to have life sussed and wrapped up in tidy formulae. Seek wisdom, follow the rules, and you'll be grand, kind of thing. But let's get back to the main idea for this morning. Everyone is looking for some kind of meaning in life, some kind of satisfaction. Satisfaction is really important. Years ago, Mick Jagger sang that he couldn't get any satisfaction. When you buy something from a reliable company, they will always guarantee your satisfaction with their chocolates or their toaster or their mobile phone or whatever you buy. You get a guarantee. Satisfaction or fulfillment is important, and we look for it in different ways and in different places. Often, though, we look in the wrong places. Often we look for it in what you might call stuff or just things. But where we think about the areas in which people look for meaning or fulfillment, it usually breaks down into big areas, a few big areas. And the writer of Ecclesiastes has tried them all. The first one he tried was an obvious one, money. Now, money is good. We would find it hard to get on without it. Life is very hard for those who don't have enough of it. But some people see it as the answer to everything, where it isn't. The thing that will bring contentment. And it doesn't necessarily. Money is good, but having it will not necessarily mean that you have a satisfied life. Years ago, I went to visit a friend in Memphis who sadly died a few years ago. And his cousin once removed, or whatever it was, Elvis Presley's lawyer. So I was taken on a VIP tour of Graceland. Not just the normal tourist tour, but a VIP tour. And it was quite sad to see all the stuff that Elvis had accumulated and spent his money on. As he grew richer and more famous, he became a more increasingly compulsive spender. He bought a horse for his wife, and then he bought a horse for himself, and then he bought horses for all his friends, whether they wanted one or not. And then he got into cowboy suits, really expensive embroidered cowboy suits. And then he bought a ranch, and then he bought a whole fleet of trucks and lorries. And I found it quite sad to walk silently around his lovely home in Memphis, to walk through rooms filled with things in display cabinets, guitars, glittery suits, out in the yard, cars. He even had 2 planes in the backyard. He had a big backyard, okay? And despite all this, Elvis was not happy or fulfilled. His wife left him. He started drugs and started overeating on burgers and pizzas and unhealthy food. His body couldn't take it. And he died at 42, very rich and very unhappy. Another classic area that people look for fulfillment and meaning, it's an obvious one, is in relationships. They're looking for the perfect lover or husband or wife. And I'm not saying that good relationships or money or nice things can't bring happiness. They can. But they don't answer the question, what is the meaning in life? And they don't necessarily give us a life fulfilled. You can go on Love Island, look for the perfect man or woman. You won't necessarily be fulfilled. And then there's work. That's a really important one, because even from our school days, we're trained, to have a good career. And it's a good thing to have a good career and to do well. But I know people who have good careers and are desperately unhappy and unfulfilled, usually because they have sacrificed so much for the sake of their career. They've got to the top of the ladder and they've found, to their horror, it's resting against a brick wall. Or to put it another way, they enter the rat race, they win, and they discover they're still a rat. And there's this something missing feeling, even after having had a successful career. Whoever wrote the book of Ecclesiastes observed people, thought about life, and thought about all the things that people do to have a fulfilled life. And they wrote down their thoughts. And they concluded that so many of the areas where we look for fulfillment and satisfaction, what we're doing is like, and here's a term from Ecclesiastes, it's like chasing after the wind. I'm recording this on a particularly blustery Friday morning and looking at the leaves blowing around outside. chasing after the wind is just plain daft. Now, one of the things that strikes me when I read Ecclesiastes is that we try all the things that he tried. We look for fulfillment and satisfaction in all the areas that the writer of Ecclesiastes tried. In chapter 1, he writes that everything is meaningless. Getting down to study, like going to school, going after a degree, getting qualifications. He says it's like chasing after the wind. In chapter 2, he mentions things that you would find in magazines in our local garage. He builds a nice house. He cultivates gardens. He buys jewellery. He hires musicians to perform live music. And he concludes, it's like chasing after the wind. And then there's work, he mentions it. It's like chasing after the wind. And riches, if you pursue them and that's all there is to your life, you'll discover it's like chasing after the wind. I think it was Mark Twain who wrote the 2 most important days in your life are, number 1, the day you were born, and number 2, the day you discover why. Christians believe that all of us are made in God's image and that life takes on its fullest meaning when we respond to him and centre our lives around him. Our collect for today, a collect in the Church of Ireland is just a little prayer that collects together thoughts from readings for that day, is based on some words of St. Augustine. And they're words that I've always loved. You have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless till they find their rest in you. We are created in order to know God, and there'll always be a restlessness, a sense of meaninglessness, a sense of dissatisfaction until our hearts find their rest in him and our lives are centered on him. Thank you so much for taking time to listen today. I hope you can join us for Harvest in person next Sunday on the 3rd of October or online here for Sunday Thoughts. Take care and God bless. Here's some music to finish.
What gift of grace is Jesus my Redeemer? There is no more for heaven now to give. He is my joy, my righteousness and freedom, my steadfast love, my deep and boundless peace. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus, for my life is wholly bound to his. Oh, how strange and divine, I can sing, all is mine, yet not I, but through Christ in me. The night is dark, but I am not forsaken, for by my side the Savior, he will stay. I labor on in weakness and rejoicing, for in my need his power is displayed. To this I hold, my shepherd will defend me. Through the deepest valley he will stay. Oh, the night has been won, and I shall overcome, yet not I, but through Christ in me. With every breath I long to follow Jesus, for he still my lips shall repeat, yet not I, but through Christ in me. Yet not I, but through